Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How can
I
I help
called
you?
last week when y'all were having the technical difficulties, so I'm kind of glad I got through today.
Oh, I'm so sorry for that. It was, and then I had to just rant, and I think, who'd want to listen to me talk for an hour? No calls. Anyway, thanks for calling back.
Thank you for having me. I've followed your work for several years already and read a lot of your books. But my question today is about it's for dating, relationship, insecure attachment. I notice when I'm dating, once I start to get to that vulnerable stage and start to fall for the person, if there's any slight, like they're distant, I notice that the anxiety goes off and then I'm anxious and paranoid, like, well, maybe they're talking to someone else or, and I've read up on it. And ultimately, and I'm not sure, are they unsafe person? Is it my intuition? Is it my anxiety? I'll end up leaving the relationship because the
Oh,
relationship anxiety is too strong.
oh, that's because you might be leaving a good one, right?
Yes, and well, I have a therapist, and she's told me before, like, well, it seems like they're ending because of your insecurities, but she doesn't know every little thing, but yes and no, it's just the lines are so close that I
Well,
don't
you
know if
didn't
it's me or
now,
them.
but you didn't say they were ending. You said you tend to end it. Are people, a lot of people ending
Well,
relationships?
there's not a compromise in the past. Been about three. There's a time where I would like a compromise and there wasn't, or I'm asking for a specific need and it's just kind of almost a deal breaker. But then some people say that's not a deal breaker, so it's like, I don't know. I end up leaving because the
Well,
anxiety is too
deal
strong and I'd
breakers
rather have.
deal breakers depend on who's the buyer and who's the seller, right?
Hmm.
That's all over the map. That's a preference thing. I mean, we just had a caller. She didn't like it that he chews snuff, and somebody else might really like that. So it's up to the
Hmm.
person. But here's what I would just, in the little time we've got here. Um, One of the things about and where did you get the term insecure attachment? Because that's a technical term.
I
Where did you learn that?
I study psychology a lot on my own, and I was researching, why am I like this? I do a lot of self-reflection
Okay.
onto where are these feelings coming from, and that's what I saw: insecure attachment, maybe trauma that's happened as a younger teen or adolescent, something like that. And I'm like, wow, I kind of do act like that in these relationships.
Okay. All right. Well, let me give you just a couple of little tips here. Insecure attachment. That means basically that as we are learning about the world, I've got a little puppy right now, and I've been studying, the developmental stages of the neurology of and windows of dog brains, and it's the same thing. God wired us all the same. There are different time windows and all that, but our brains get wired, okay, and they get wired to determine what's safe and what's danger, right? And so what happens is
Hmm.
safety is a relationship where somebody is warm and they're for us and they're nice and they're listening and they respond to our needs. And in that we move towards it and we attach. Okay, it's like glue.
Hmm.
All right. Now, if they remain that way, then a kid learns my attachments are secure and I can venture from that attachment to be myself. I can do whatever I want and they'll still love me and they don't fear either abuse or abandonment. Those are the two big things, right? We're going to get rejected
Hmm.
or hurt or left. Kind of. So here's what happens. Sometimes in people's developmental years, that security is interrupted by somebody's rejecting or somebody withdraws love or is abandoning or whatever. And then you learn this kind of like, this I attach, but then I move away. And what happens is your radar begins to give a lot of false positives. In other
Hmm.
words, the radar says something bad's happening, but it's really not. But
Right.
it's
Okay.
too highly tuned, right? Now
Hmm.
here's the thing.
Hmm.
When it's too highly tuned, a couple of things can happen. One is you can see rejection where there isn't any,
Hmm.
all right, and move away. Or sometimes there's so much noise, you can question yourself when there is something. that you
Yeah.
should give
Uh-huh.
attention to. So you kind of get thrown off in both directions. I don't see the unsafety that's there. I talk myself out of it, or
Right.
I see it when it's not there. All right. So when
Yes,
you're in
that's exactly what
therapy,
happened.
so your therapist is going to help you to heal that. That's why you're in therapy. And so here's kind of the trick that I would like for you to begin to think about. Clear this with your therapist, of course. But one of the things that's good in a relationship is I want you to do two of those questions. Ask, now, is what they just did something that somebody would normally do? That might not mean they don't like
Hmm.
me. So question that alarm system, right? And say, is it
Okay.
normal for sometimes to say somebody to say, no, I don't want to go to lunch today? That's a normal thing.
Hmm.
I need to question this. Is it normal for somebody to maybe kind of look away or not really pay it? Yeah, there's a bunch of normal behaviors that secure attachment people don't interpret as anything wrong. They don't stop being themselves. Okay,
Hmm.
that's one thing. The second thing is beginning to pay attention to what you do feel and ask when it is real. But here's the bottom line. If there is someone that you are beginning to get in a relationship with, and it's getting to the point to where you're interested, if you can make that your problem and not theirs, then that allows the relationship itself to be healing and the person's not going to move away as much or potentially as they would if you blame them. Because what happens with a lot of people with insecure attachment, they start blaming the other person, like, well, you don't like me, or what,
Yeah.
what's wrong, as opposed to if you've said, you know what, sometimes I feel insecure and sometimes I take
Hmm.
things like the wrong way and I get afraid. And what I'd like to do is, because I don't want to screw up our relationship when I get a little goofy, I want the permission to kind of check that out. So if I'm starting feeling
Okay.
weird, I'm just going to ask you, did I do something? Or and it's going to sound weird, but if I could just have permission to check that out, that gives you a place to begin to start to, unless you're with a gaslighter or somebody weird, that gives you a place to start
Hmm.
address it. Then they feel more comfortable, like you're not acting it out against them.
Yes, that makes sense.
Follow? So just talk to your therapist about that and see if that happens. See if that helps.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks for your call.